Oh man. So Drew McMahon for 7 likes asks, do Christians and Muslims worship the same God? I guess this has been like a polemic. I kind of saw that. I think I saw Jay arguing this. I didn't watch the debate. I didn't see what is being said. I think that to the extent that the early that St. John of Damascus and the people that were there at the time, the Muslims, saw them as Christian heretics. I tend to think that yes, we do worship the same God. I think heretics worship the same God as us. I think they do it with error, and I also think that Jews worship the same God as Christians, but they do it with error. And I think that that's probably the best way that I understand it. But I understand when people say the opposite. I understand when people say, well, if there's an error in the way you worship God, then you don't worship the same God. You worship a different God. But I find that a little difficult, I find that difficult, especially in the explicitation of God as the definition or like the descriptions of the one infinite God behind all things becomes more detailed. It's difficult to say that you need that explicit theology in order to say that we worship the same God. I find that complicated. It's like sometimes I see people say, Abraham worshiped the Trinity. And I'm like, well, yeah, I think that's true. But I think you have to be careful in the way that you say that, because there is an implicit, notion that the Trinity is implicit in the revelation of God all through the Old Testament. But there is a difference between that and like homoousion and, and like the technical language that we use to differentiate the persons of the Trinity and all that. And I find that... So I would say, it's the same. Like I would say the Arian Christians, that they were heretics, and that's why in theory they weren't rebaptized when they were received. And so there was something real about what they believed, but they were in error, and that error would lead to things downstream, which would bring about a spiritual problems, So that's what I think. Yeah. Cassette newspaper says, I have the police on the phone right now. Be careful with what you will say, Jonathan. Yeah, the Orthodox police. So, and I like, it's weird. It's like, I kind of get why for polemic reasons, you might say, the Muslims worship a different God, but then it just gets really difficult because then you could go all the way and say, well, it means that non-Chalcedonians worship a different God. It means that Catholics worship a different God. It means that, and it's like, okay, I don't know how useful that is. Like, I don't know how useful that is. So it means that if we were ever to solve our theological problem, let's say, and ecclesiological problem with Rome, and we were going to rejoin in a real way, like not in a fake ecumenical way, but it like actually solved the theological problem. It means that they would be switching the God they worship, like now they would be worshiping a different God. I just find that hard to maintain in my mind, yeah.